All right, we're back out here. Gonna work on getting the engine back together on this 302 propane this weekend. I'm gonna start up here. The pump, power steering pump that was on this was a replacement. It didn't have this top tank on here like the originals did, so Welter's had one. I got it, it was painted black, so I hit it with the IH Federal Yellow rattle can, and turned out pretty good to make it kind of to match a little bit better. I got my dude Brian coming over in a little bit to help me put this back together, but in the meantime I'm gonna get the block set on here. So I just wanted to point out that I've got the gaskets on and I've got some black RTV sealant, and you can see I just put it around the very edges, and that's just to help seal, and that's on the top and the bottom. Then I'll set the blocks on and just put my bolts in finger tight until we get the pistons in, and once we get the pistons in, then I'll crank it over a few times to let the pistons run up and down inside the blocks, make sure everything's lined up, and then I will torque down the blocks. So that's where I'm at. I've got a couple other things I'm going to do in preparation of Brian getting here, and then hopefully we can get pistons in tonight and see how far we can get. All right, I got the blocks on. Set them on, put the 6 nuts on this side just down finger tight, put a little bit of WD-40 on to help them go down, and hopefully they'll torque better. And then on this side, coming up, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the bolts that come up in from the bottom side, and again just put those in. I got to get those a little tighter, but those will be finger tight. Something I'm going to do before Brian gets here is I'm going to clean up the journals here, go through, get them really clean, and then put some engine lube on them. And then I'm also going to clean out the inside of the cylinders and do that, because when he gets here, I've already prepped the pistons. I did this the other night, so I've already got on my rod bearings engine lube on those, coated, so that when I put those on, they'll be lubed up, and so everything will be ready to go. It's kind of a pretty sight seeing these 4 pistons sitting here all nice and clean. So that's where we're at right now, and we will update you and after he gets here and we start putting pistons in. Almost forgot to mention, I also had new lines made on the steering, and when I get it down like this, a lot of those lines were in bad shape, they were cracked. So I had that one made. I had the 2 short lines on the cylinder. So this is only going to be applicable to your 1970 models, but I had both of those made, and then back here I just got a new return line and had another one made here. The easy ones to get to, and they were all kind of cracked and in bad shape, so when I get it to this point, I like to just go ahead and replace those. All right, so just going to lower this down into the 4th hole. I'm going to rotate my oil rings there. They were, thought I checked them, but those were lined up, and I don't want that. Make sure that we're good now. All right, so from the bottom, I'm going to hold up on the piston so Brian can get the compression tool on there. He's going to keep downforce on that to keep it really tight against the top of the block. We've had a little trouble with it creeping up, so he's going to get it good and tight. Then he's going to get the dead blow. Tap around on the compressor, make sure it's nice and tight against the top of the block. He's going to do some tapping on the top of the piston and start the piston moving down. I can feel it coming down, so I know we're good. And then he's gonna just check and make sure that his compressor's staying tight against the block. Just doing nice, slow taps. Guiding it onto the crank. Give it a little bit better of a whack there. Just I think we might have slipped. Oh, it's coming. So the piston's all the way in. He's going to give it a couple more so we're nice and solid on top of the crank, which we are right there. So we got the piston in the hole there, and then we've got it on top of the crank down here. So I'm going to get the bottom rod bearing and the cap, and we're gonna put it on there. These get torqued to 70 to 75 pounds. I've been torquing them to 75. Again, I put the WD-40 on the threads to make sure that we don't have any resistance there. It just helps it torque a little bit better. So that's where we are. I'm gonna tighten that one down, and we've got pistons in. All right, so now that we've got it all together and we've got it to where it needs to be, I got my man Brian, who I got to point out, showed up wearing this sweatshirt, and he walked through the door, and I'm like, what are you wearing? And it was how much?
13 bucks at Tractor Supply Co.
13 bucks at Tractor Supply. So he said, how could I pass it up? Like, you could wear something else. But I'm having Brian run the crank around for me. We want to run the pistons up and down just to make sure the blocks are lined up where they need to be, so that before we tighten the blocks down. So he's going to do it 3 or 4 times, 5 or 6 times, doesn't really matter, but once it goes down around enough, it will make sure everything's nice and lined up. And then we're going to torque the blocks down. Again, it's the 3 bolts on each block on the bottom here, which is why the crank's out, and then the 6 nuts on the other side. All right, we're back at it today. It's a 2-heater day, so I'm sorry that it might be a little loud from the heaters. For some reason it wanted to snow again last night, and after being almost 70 last week, and it's like 20 degrees today. It was 17 this morning. So the first thing I've done when I've come out today is I just put the camshaft back in. So assembly lube in all 3 places, then I put the caps on, and then hooked in the oil tubes on the front 2, and then the back one, you want to make sure that there's a little cutout at the top of that that catches oil and directs oil down in there. It comes down from above and drips in, so you want to make sure that that's good. I put the not sure the exact technical term, put the push rod caps or whatever up in there, put grease in. They're all pushed up in there. This one has already just decided to start coming down, but that's what you want. You want them to stay up in there until you're done putting the cam in. And then I've got my timing marks lined up on the cam and on the crank, so it's right there. It's kind of hard to see, I'm sure. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go over and work on the getting the heads ready, because I think that's where, to that point where we're going to be putting the heads back on and going from there. All right, I wanted to stop here in my progress of doing this. Got the heads together, I had the adapter plate on, just 2 bolts that hold it, my strap. Doing this by myself, I don't know if this is the right way, but I got the cherry picker on it. I have put my new O-rings in, I put my water tube in, put a little sealant on that. Got everything clean up here. I'm ready to put my head gaskets on. They're over here. As I put those on, I'm just going to put a light coat of the copper spray gasket on them, and then I'm going to put those on and then lower the head down on it, and then I will pull the adapter plate off, put the adapter plate gasket down, put it back on, put everything finger tight as far as all my head bolts and nuts go, put my manifold on and intake, tighten those down to line everything up, and then I will torque everything down. All right, I got the heads on, everything torqued down to 100 pounds. It's 95 to 100 pounds, I put them at 100. I put the manifold and the intake on, tightened those down, and then I tightened everything down. So everything looks good, everything went together well. Need to probably polish the paint on here a little bit, see if I can bring that back. So next thing I want to do is I want to put the rocker arms on and get the push rods in, the rocker arms on. I'll be done. I think I'm going to pull the exhaust back off. The nuts are rusted to the studs coming out of the head. I can get some all thread, cut it down to the right length for these studs, and I'll probably sandblast and just put high temp heat paint on all this just to make it look a little better. And I don't know, it's just something that it bothers me a little bit that it's all rusty. So I'm going to work on getting the rocker arms on now. I had to take a little pause before I put the rockers on. Put them on, whoever had been in here before, just put a nut with a lock washer on top here, and it's supposed to be a nut with a jam nut. I didn't have jam nuts, so I had to go get those this morning. Then I put the spacers on. At some point they put on new studs up here. So I got those on. I adjusted my valves, put my spark plugs in. I did run into a little issue when I went to adjust the valves. I went to spin the crank and or the cam or crank, and it wouldn't spin. And yesterday when I was putting it together and put the cam in, I didn't get it meshed up with the distributor correctly, so it had everything locked up. So I had to kind of loosen everything up and get all that line back up, but got that going. So now I want to put the side cover back on and put some oil in it. I put a new oil filter on since the other one was from who knows when. The oil filter I like to use on these is the Napa 1515. I do have my new oil pressure sender there. So next thing will be the side cover, and then I'm probably, I don't know if I'm going to mess with this today or not, but I got new thread so I can cut these and make new studs for my manifolds, and then I'll sandblast and paint these parts, but we'll see how it goes today. I might just roll the front back into this and then prepare to move my splitting stands around so then I can split it here, because I want to look at the clutch, and then we got to work on the torque. So we'll keep moving. All right, I got it buttoned back up. Just placed the valve cover on. It's not tightened down yet, just to keep dirt out of there. But got the side cover on, and I'm gonna say putting that on without the side rail being in the way was glorious. That's the way to do it. I've always struggled with the frame rail kind of lines up and it covers those bottom ones, and it's it's not hard, but it's just not as easy as obviously doing without it. That was pretty smooth. So that's all put on. I think I'm gonna roll the front end back and bolt it up so then I can switch my splitting stands to get it split. I think that's gonna be my course of action. It'll probably finish out the day. Got my splitting stands all changed up. I got Joe's now hooked up into the front two holes. My supports going up to the frame rail, and then I've got the screw stand going to the back too. I've pulled out all the bolts from this side and I have a pile somewhere on the other side. So I'm going to take out these two, those two holding that cover here, so you can access the bolts going up and around. So I don't know if you can see with the camera, but it has separated just a little bit at the top already, but not at the bottom. So if I have to guess, I should probably lower those wheels just a little so that it's squared up, and then it should go back together pretty easily when I'm done. I had to take out the front tank support there for the propane tank. That was something that is new because I've never had to do that before on one of these. I've got all the wiring loose on this side, and then over here same thing, 2 bolts, and then all the bolts around. Got the wiring off the starter, got the throttle rod out of the way. My steering lines are still unhooked, and so yeah, she should be ready to roll apart. The bolts from this side, I had to kind of experiment around with some wood because I had to put a block of wood under the tank over here to support the tank, but luckily I had a 4x4. It was kind of broke down, and so that worked out real well. So next thing I'm going to do, I don't know if you can see how it's separated a little bit there and not at the bottom, so I'm probably going to take just a crank off of off the caster wheels and then roll it apart. Alright, I took the crank off each of the wheels, and should be able to roll it apart now. Shouldn't be too hard. Make sure everything's free. So nothing snags up. And I want to check and make sure everything's still free. But there you have it. She's coming apart. I'll work on this just a little bit to get it the rest of the way, but it doesn't look too bad in there. So I'm going to roll it the rest of the way away, and then we'll assess what we have. And there she is, rolled away. Of course, I didn't check as I was pulling, but some of these lines snagged up on the front end and the wire harness. After checking it and talking about it, it's still snagged up, so I had to get those undone. So there's the inside of there, and there's the back side of the clutch. Now, I kind of hesitated there. This looks a little different than my other ones. I want to say on the other ones, this plate back here is a lot closer up here. I'm confused. Maybe this thing was made without a torque in it. I just thought they removed it, but I'm gonna have to do some research. This is different than I think the other ones that I've had, because you have to, in taking out these roll pins on this yoke to do the torque seal, on my other ones, it was right up against that plate. So this is definitely different. All right, I'm gonna have to do some figuring on this one. Interesting. Okay, mystery solved. It's been a while since I've had a 302 open. I did a Jetstar last. So the Jetstar is different in here. It's the 302. It's definitely further back in there. The Jetstar is right up against here. This is where the extra length on the 302 comes from, this housing here. So I did go ahead and pull the clutch out, and so my flywheel is ridged pretty good. Definitely my rear crank seal has been leaking because there's oil coming from in there. And the clutch discs, it's been replaced, I would say, at some point, because there's still some material left. So that's kind of where we are. I'll be sure pulling the flywheel off and getting it turned and getting clutch parts, and then wait on Joe Pro to come down for a day, and he and I will take this apart in here and put the ample torque back in. So progress. Pretty busy weekend getting the engine back together and getting this thing split, but we are definitely moving on. I want to have this thing ready for some shows this summer, hopefully. So until the next video will obviously cover clutch and amplitorque, and then putting this thing back together, getting it running again. Then I'll have some cosmetic stuff I want to do to it, and then we'll be going to shows. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.